Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz, and today we're going to be talking about the Lake Bodom Murders. If I mess any of these names up, it's because I am not from Finland. I do have Finnish descent, but I am not from Finland. A lot of these names are very, very interesting. Sorry, he kind of just flew off there. But a lot of these names are interesting, and I probably am not going to pronounce a lot of them right. I will try and put them on the screen if I remember, but anywho. So this is one of the most infamous unsolved murders that happened and have happened in Finnish history. So the 4 involved victims, 3 died, 1 survived, that are of Mela Bjorklund, Anja Mäki, they were both 15, Seppo Boisman, and then Nils Gustafsson. Nils Gustafsson and Seppo Boisman were both 18. They're the boyfriends of Mila and Anja. So the 3 that were killed are Mila, Anja, and Seppo. They all died via blunt force trauma and stabbing while they were asleep, while they were tent camping. And this happened in Espoo, Finland, more specifically at Lake Bodom. So, our 4th victim, obviously, is Nils. He survives, but we'll kind of get into that. So, what I want you to know, obviously, they died while they're camping. So we have 2 inside the tent and then 1 outside the tent, which is what kind of makes it really strange. So, Seppo, or Seppi, as I've seen, he died from blood inhalation, and this happened because of his stab wounds to his neck. What a very tragic way to die. They all had trauma to the head. Like I mentioned, our 4th victim, which is Nils, he was found outside of the tent where they all were staying. It was actually him and his girlfriend found outside of the tent, which is kind of what leads to a lot of doubt in his recount of what happens. So Nils suffered from stab wounds and several broken facial bones, and he had a gash so deep on his face that his teeth were showing. So, like I mentioned, this is Nils Gustafsson. And then these were simply just 2 couples that were in the woods and camping and wanted to have some fun. So, here's the thing. The killer attacked them from outside of the tent. So they're inside the tent and attacked them from outside. This was done with a rock and a knife. Well, that's what is thought was used for attacking them, but we have no idea. None of the weapons have ever been found or ever been located. So Mila was the most disfigured from this crime. She was naked from the waist down, and her remains were found on top of the tent. This is Nils' girlfriend. She was also stabbed post-mortem as well, whereas the other teens weren't met with as much brutality. Obviously, Seppi, he died from blood inhalation due to the stab wounds of his neck, but Mila, she was attacked in a way that was very strange. So her boyfriend Nils was also found lying on top of the tent, which is kind of off-putting, but sometimes these things happen. He, surprisingly, was alive. And it's appeared that this attack happened between the hours of 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. on Sunday, June 5th of 1960. Also, what else is strange is that the keys of the victims and some other items, such as wallets and clothing, were missing, even though motorbikes that these keys belonged to were still at the scene. Also, Nils' shoes were kind of hidden out of view, but they were 500 meters away from his body. Like, really, why were his shoes so far away from his body? Unfortunately for us, this whole scene was literally destroyed because no police officer cordoned off this scene, and there was a crowd of onlookers that destroyed it. Any forensic evidence that could have been found at that time, obviously this is the 1960s, there wasn't a lot of good with forensics, but all of it was destroyed because the scene was demolished. Like, there's no saving anything from that. So there was also another mistake by the police. They didn't ask for backup. If they had backup, then they would have had all of the help they needed to cordon off the scene to make sure that nothing would have happened to any possible forensic evidence that they could have saved, but didn't ask for any help. So when the police inquired about the attacker from Nils told them that he had a brief glimpse of him, and this attacker was in all black and had bright red eyes. There was also a group of males that were bird watching at around 6 a.m. and saw a blonde man around 5'8" in his 20s walking away from the campsite. But these young men just went back to what they were doing. And it wouldn't be until Esko Johansson discovered the bodies at around 11 a.m. and police didn't arrive at the scene until noon. So we have some suspects in this case. The first one is Valdemir Gillstrom. He was known as a hostile kiosk keeper that hated campers. There's no actual connection to him, to the murders, but we won't know because he killed himself via suicide in 1969, just 9 years after the murders. Also, police never took a DNA sample from him to possibly rule him out in the future. Next one we're going to talk about is Pentti Soinen. He is an escaped psychopath known for his insane, violent tendencies. He was institutionalized and claimed responsibility for the Lake Bodom murders, and at the time of the murders, he would have been about 14 years old. This kind of makes sense, especially with the frenziness about it, where two of them kind of simple deaths, one of them, oh my god, and then the fourth one, obviously severe trauma to the face, but still alive. We have 3 more we're going to talk about because there's 5 suspects. One of them is like, what? And then the other 2 are, we have Paulie Kusta, who is an escaped thief, and I believe he's been ruled out, but you never know. There's a lot of strange things when it comes to this case, because I think they really added him to the suspect list because of the missing items. But due to the fact that Nils' shoes were found 500 meters away from the crime scene, they were kind of like, this is weird. This now brings us to one man. His name is quite hilarious. His name is Hans Assmann from Espoo. It's literally spelled Assman. So, yeah. Hans was residing not too far away from this campsite at the time. And he was accused of committing this murder and other crimes. So him, just like Valdemir Gillstrom, they were believed to be behind this by the community for years. Here's the thing about him. He had an alibi because he was doing the dirty with his side chick at the time. And he was in Helsinki. But another thing too is that there's claims that people saw him at a hospital on the 6th of June, 1960. Literally the next day, he was covered in blood, apparently. But these are just allegations. We don't really know. And our last suspect is Nils. So this one is strange, I know, but he's on here, and it's because Finnish police believe he possibly was the killer. So in March of 2004, it was when they were trying to get some answers when it came to the murder in this case. This is when this all broke out. So Nils couldn't provide any information in regards to what the perp looked like, except for it was looking very supernatural-like. Bright red eyes covered in black. And it was off-putting for the police that he couldn't remember anything that happened. I mean, he was drinking with Seppo, so obviously his memory is impaired. They also, in 2004, had hopes of there possibly being DNA on the shoes, But I don't know. His shoes were found far away from the crime scene, so this also threw police for a loop. Like, why are his shoes so far away? Why did he, like, walk over and put his shoes there and hide them and then go back to the scene? But even if he was the killer, then he would have blood all over him. Which also would make sense because he was found right next to his girlfriend Mila outside of the tent because they were both on top of the tent, on top of Seppo and Anya. But that's not all. Is this a crime of passion? Did something happen with him and Mila that caused him to go into a jealous frenzy? I mean, she was out of the tent. Maybe it was rage that caused him to do this. Did he kill Seppo and Anya first, and then maybe Mila was, I don't know, off and about, and then she came back to the scene, saw him literally, like, freaked out, like, bugged out, and then he attacked her? I don't know. More than 60 years later, after this crime, it's still unsolved, and there's so many questions of who's the blonde man? Was it Nils that did it? If it was, why did he stage the crime scene? Why were there things missing, and why haven't they been able to find them? Obviously, they're trophies, so where are they? Where are the trophies? Why wasn't there a blood trail leading away from the scenes if Nils hid the weapons? What are your thoughts? Leave them in the comments down below because I sure shit am confused by this case, as most others. So that, my friends, is the Lake Bodom Murders, and I'll see you guys in my next one.